morning. This is a short lecture video to go over the metric system and how we can convert through different metric measurements as we go from smaller to bigger, or wanting to figure out how many grams there are in a kilogram, for instance. Before we get started, let's talk about the three parts of every measurement. Every measurement has three parts to it. A number, which represents the value or the size or magnitude of the measurement. So here is a measurement, 5.03 grams of sugar. The 5.03 would be the number, right? 423 miles to Nashville, 423 would be the number. It also has a units, okay? It's a nature of the quantity. So for instance, grams or miles. Can't just have a number, we need to know what that number represents, and so that's what the unit tells us. We are always going to be using the metric system in this course, so things for volume would be liter, grams would be what we use to measure mass, meters is what we would use to measure length. And then there's an indication of the uncertainty of the measurement, and that's going to have to do with the place values or the significant figures, and we're going to get to that in a different unit. But all three things are going to be represented when you see a measurement of some kind. 1 teaspoon of sugar, or 3.2 meters in length. We in science use the International System of Units for all of our measurements, and it's basically a universal way that every scientist around the globe can measure things, so we're all on the same page. Most countries use metric units or measurements, labels. We use English units. The SI system is a way to basically make a universal measuring system that scientists can use. So these are the basic fundamental units for all of the different types of measurements that we would take. So for temperature, we would measure in Kelvin for the SI units. We're used to degrees Celsius or degrees Fahrenheit, but the actual SI unit for temperature is Kelvin. Meters is going to represent distance. Amperes is going to represent electrical current. We aren't going to get into that much in this class at all. Time, the unit is going to be seconds. Mole is the amount of a substance. We'll use this quite a bit. Kilogram represents the mass of a substance, and then a candela represents the intensity of light. Again, something we won't use in here, but kilograms, moles, we'll use those quite a bit. Kelvin. So when we talk about the metric system is a series of measurements that are chunked into groups of 10. So basically, I have this ladder system here. And here's where our base unit's going to be, which would represent like 1.0, right? So a meter, a liter, a gram, these are our base units. So when we want to find out, for instance, how many kilograms are in 1 gram, we can use these units of 10 to either multiply or divide to find our answer. Or for those of you who are really kind of freaked out by the math, we can use a simple jumping steps mechanism to help. So I'm going to show you how to do both. So here is your ladder system right here. Okay, here are our base units. So let's say we have 3.4 meters and we want to know how many hectometers that is. Well, let's go with number 1 strategy, which is going to be using the numbers of 10. So if you look here, we started with meters, right? And we're going to go up 1 step. So then we would take this number, 3.4, and because we are moving up, we would divide it by 10, right? And that's going to give us 0.34. But we don't want, that'll give us 0.34 decameters. But we don't want decameters, we want hecto, right? So we have to go up 1 more step, which is a grouping of 10, remember? So then we would take this number here, and we would divide that by 10. And that would give us 0.034 hectometers. Okay, so basically for every unit that you hit on this ladder, if you're going up, you're going to divide by 10. 3.4 meters, you know that meters, this is big here, right? and this is going to be smaller. So you know that meters is smaller than a kilometer, than a hectometer. So you know that this number, if you have 3.4, that there's going to be less of these in it than here, because these are bigger quantities. Now, if I was going down, I would multiply each one by 10. So here's the other thing you can do. Method number 2, right? This was method number 1, using the tens. Method number 2 is you count the steps from where you start to where you go. So 1, 2, and you take your number, which was 3.4, and you're going to just move the decimal place over to the left that many spots. So 1, 2, put your decimal place, fill in the zeros, right? And so then you end up with 0.34 hectometers. So either way is going to give you the same answer. It all depends on what your comfort level is here. So let's look at example number 2. Right? We have 5.6 grams, and we want to know how many milligrams that is, right? So we're starting here. This is where our start point is, and we're going down here. So if you use method number 1, right, you go down 1, so we would multiply this by 10, 5.6 times 10, and that's going to give us 560, right? No, sorry, 56. Then we got to go down another step because we're still not at millimeters, so then we would take this times 10. That would give us 560. We got to go down one more step because we want millimeters. So that would multiply that by 10, and we would get 5,600 milligrams. Right? So you just would multiply down. The second way, remember, is you would take our number here, 5.6, count your steps, 1, 2, 3. Move your decimal places over to the right, 1, 2, 3, and that's 3 zeros that you would add in there, giving you the same number, 560 or 5,600 milligrams. All right, take a second to complete example number 3 on your own. Pause this video, work through it. The answer to number 3 should be 300,000 centigrams in 1 kilogram. In order to make this more accurate, we would put it into scientific notation, which you can watch that video on how to do that, but basically we would move the decimal point to between the first two numbers, and then that would become our exponent here, so it would end up being 3.0 times 10 to the 5th centigrams. Now, as most of you already know, we in North America don't typically use metric units. We use the English units, so inches, feet, ounces, pounds, those types of units. So we need to be able to convert from English units to metric units occasionally. And we will talk about how we can do that when we do the dimensional analysis video. But here are some common unit conversion factors. There's 2.54 centimeters in an inch, 39.37 inches in a meter, which also equals 1.094 yards. 1 mile is 1609.34 meters. You track kids probably know that. 1600 meters is a mile. 1 cubic centimeter also equals 1 milliliter, and 1 liter equals 1.06 quarts. So those are some common unit conversion factors that we will have to bounce back and forth. If you have any questions on converting through metrics, please let me know. Otherwise, have a great day.